it was not a great strike. It was kind of it was slightly thin. It was kind of just a weak 9 iron, but it was straight at the pin and it got a big release and it went in the holes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Whole Story Podcast. Robbie and Jonathan here. Jonathan, how you doing, man? Nice shirt.
Thanks. We obviously texted each other this morning to make sure we coordinate.
We did not coordinate this, but when you have friends like Dan Drellinger and the fine folks at B. Dratty who provide some apparel for us to wear, every now and then we might somehow grab the same one. So,
right.
Yeah, a very nice shirt you got there.
This is the one, because I'm terrible at folding and putting away clothes. This was the one that was still on a hanger, so I probably should go. I need to go find something else for our next show.
That's funny. Well, speaking of those guys, we're very thankful for the B. Dratty, Zero Restriction, Fairway and Green, all the folks at Summit Golf Brands. We love working with them. They make incredible apparel. I did wear my Dratty Cool shirt the other day on the golf course because it is hot outside. And it was a very nice one. These are great. These are performance shirts, so these help keep you cool out there, and they look good, even on guys like us. So, very thankful for them. They are kind enough to give our audience, you the listener or viewer, 20% off on any of their websites. So if you visit their websites and use BestBall20, you can get 20% off. So very thankful that they did that for you guys. Another friend of the program, Western Birch. We talk about them all the time. We scatter Western Birch golf tees everywhere. Probably not as much as you would think because they last forever. So you might go through 2 or 3 tees during a round. I was playing at Spring Valley a couple weeks ago, and a buddy texted me and said, "Hey, are you here?" And I said, "I am." And he's like, "I found a best ball tee on hole number 4 or something like that." So anyway, they make great tees, and it's nice that you can put your custom logo on it. You can pick out the colors you want. So many thanks to Lewis and their team for supporting us here at Best Ball. But Jonathan, today is part 2 of our chat about Broomsedge Golf Club in Rembert, South Carolina. You didn't get to go with me on site. You were sick that day when I got to talk to Trevor and Wyatt and their team there to explore this new property in South Carolina, this beautiful new golf course that everybody is raving about. I'm rocking the logo on the hat right now. But today's episode, we talk with Mike Koprowski, the man behind the idea, the man that moved a lot of dirt himself, but the original owner, founder, and architect of Broomsedge Golf Club.
Yeah, and I clearly wanted to go play already. Now I really got the itch to go play. I'm trying to figure out, it's only like an hour and a half away. Maybe we can figure out an option to go because it sounds incredible. And whenever you think about just granted, a successful individual who seems pretty good at what he does in most cases, but more like a guy going, I think I can move some dirt around and get this thing to work. And so there are professional architects that you love being around their golf courses, but to see someone who literally just had an idea and a vision in their head and then started moving dirt and brought it to fruition, that sounds like a blast.
Yeah, he has built something great. I've been out there a couple times, and it's one of those places we've talked before to different architects and people that love the game. It's a place you want to go back.
Right.
You want to pick up your clubs, go back there, and again, thankfully, it's right up the road. So I love the fact that a lot of these new courses are coming to South Carolina. I know a lot of people all over the world have had experiences with new course and everything, but it's neat to see South Carolina, either side of Columbia where I am, getting some of the best new places in golf. And I feel spoiled and privileged a little bit to get to go see them, but I'm not going to turn it down because they're awesome places. So it's fun to do what we get to do. But yeah, so today's part 2. If you missed part 1, we talked to Trevor and Wyatt, the head pro and the assistant pro, there while I was on site. So go back and listen to that one when you have some time. They have great stories. Hear how they got to Broomsedge and the good things they are doing, their thoughts of the course so far. But today we're chatting with Mike. We hope you guys enjoy this episode of the Whole Story Podcast. All right, right, today's guest on part two of our look at Broomsedge is someone that has a little bit to do with it. So, Mike Koprowski, welcome to the whole story. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So before we get into this, we I sat down with Trevor and Wyatt, awesome dudes, awesome team, and I'm sure we'll touch on just the team around it. But a little bit of your background. I read an article linked to the Broomsedge site, of course, but learned that you're a Notre Dame grad, an Air Force vet. Thank you for that.
Yep.
And then you got a master's from Duke and Harvard. And you take all that and you're like, you know what? I want to build a golf course. So before we jump into Broomsedge and kind of more about how you got there, what's your story in golf? Like, when did you start playing? I think I read in the article your dad had a little bit to do with it, but tell us your story.
Yeah. It's been an interesting route. I mean, I've been playing golf since I can remember. I mean, my dad put a club in my hand. My dad was a really good golfer, and played all my life really. I really got into architecture. I grew up in South Florida, so I played golf in between the palm trees and the condos and the ponds. There wasn't a lot of architecturally significant golf in Pembroke Pines, Florida, where I played my golf. But my dad, I guess I was, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 at the time. My dad was like, "Hey, let's go up to TPC Sawgrass," and that was really the first time that I felt like something was different about the place I was playing. And I just started to ask myself the question of why do I like this so much better than, no offense to Pembroke Lakes Country Club, but why do I like this so much better? What is it about this place? This is like a creativity overload. What is this? And that really got me into architecture. And I got Pete Dye's book, Buried Me in a Pop Bunker, and just started really getting into the Pete Dye stuff. And I was just fascinated at the marriage of art and nature that, that was there. And that, to me, that's what was really special about golf, is it's not a uniform field, whether it's, most sports, it's a standard soccer field, or it's a standard football field, or it's a standard basketball court. Golf was just completely irregular, and that fascinated the creative side of me. So I got into it just by playing, and then got the architecture bug, and then really just studied it all throughout all these various journeys, whether I'm in the military, whether I'm in, the policy world, whether I'm in education reform or housing reform. This is my hobby. This is the thing that I do, when I'm not working, and, had a lot of travels to try to see the best places in the world, and just was a really serious hobby for me. And then, I don't know, classic midlife crisis, right? And you're just like, I was in DC at the time, and it was, banging your head against the wall with this particular Congress, or the last many particular Congresses, and just said, I'm ready for something new. And Stone Cold emailed Kyle Franz and said, "Hey, I'd love to just shovel shit for you if you'll let me, just to learn." He's like, "Hey, we can do better than shovel shit. You can actually get in an excavator and see if you can shape anything." And then here we are, 6-7 years later. So it's been an interesting journey, but
most guys have to convince their wife it's okay to like buy a new set of golf clubs, or maybe the convertible, the BMW really will hold new golf clubs, and you on a date. How do you convince your family to be like, let's go ahead and build a golf course?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Well, so the thing was, first of all, my wife is a saint, and she deserves some sort of medal of freedom for dealing with all this bullshit. But she was, she certainly had her questions, and we certainly had our discussions about this. But at the end of the day, she was, she knew what I knew, which is, at the end of the day, it's dirt, and God's not making any more of it. And if this doesn't work out, we can sell the dirt, and even if it's it's okay. So the plan was to take out an agricultural loan, buy the land, and then figure out the golf course stuff later. And at the time, the interest rates were pretty good, and we did some sort of balloon rate where, in 8 years the interest rate would go up. And so sort of the deal with her was, look, if I can't figure this out in the next few years, we'll just sell it, and no harm, no foul. and that was, that was ultimately the deal we made, and it all worked out.
So, I'm in Columbia, so I'm 40 minutes, I guess, away from you. 40 minutes on the other side of me. You've got Tree Farm, you've got Old Barnwell, all the things they're doing. But how did you land in Rembert, South Carolina, and figure out that? I read in an article like you've been studying topography maps forever, but
Yeah.
how did you say, you know what, that's where I think we should do this?
Yeah. I had my eye east of Columbia. It felt like the missing link in the Carolina Sandhills. I mean, in the you got the Mecca that is Pinehurst, where I live. Not much needs to be said about the quality of golf in Pinehurst. And then you travel down the Sandhills, and you hit Aiken, and there's an explosion in Aiken right now. But east of Columbia it's relatively the same soils that Pinehurst is sitting on, that Aiken is sitting on, and yet there was really a dearth of architecturally significant golf in that area. And so I felt like that was the missing link in the Sandhills. And it had the added benefit of being pretty cheap because it's very rural out there. Um, and so it kind of hit all the boxes for me. So I had narrowed in that area between kind of like, I guess the state line really, like what is it, Chesterfield-ish, and then down through Columbia, and just kind of honed in on that area. And then you have your you have your laundry list of sort of punch list things like, can you get three-phase power there without spending $1 billion? Is there access to water supply? What's the cost per acreage? Are there any deed restrictions on the land, mineral rights? I mean, there's a whole slew of stuff that you have to look at to make sure that, like, yeah, this is doable. But then there was the ultimate test, which is, what do you feel when you step on the site? Do you feel golf? It's sort of that mystery potion. And this was, I'd probably looked at maybe 30 sites in the Sandhills, and probably about 10 of them would have worked. But a lot of them just kind of had a similar movement to what had already been done in the Sandhills, where the Sandhills typically rolls in a somewhat predictable fashion. And I was looking for something that was more irregular, that was sort of rambunctious in nature, and that sort of moved in weird ways that you hadn't seen in the Sandhills. And this was that site, where I just felt like this is, it was totally covered with trees. So I was very reliant on topo maps, as you said. And this topo map was just weird. I didn't understand how these landforms occurred naturally. It was just very strange. And that's what intrigued me initially to it. And then stepped on site, got the feels, and then actually did before I even bought it, had a sketch routing. I didn't know if it would be the routing, but I wanted to at least have some comfort that, okay, we can do something great out here. I don't know if this will be the routing, but at least I feel like this is a good routing. And walked the site a couple times, and once I got comfortable with it, put in the offer, and said, all right, I mean, the best predictor of whether you're going to build a great golf course is whether you get a great piece of land, right? And so kind of my philosophy was, I'll snag the land now and figure out the rest later, and it worked.
It does feel like whenever you buy a house or a car, or you start putting paint on walls, there's a moment of regrets, right?
Oh yeah.
So where is it whenever you buy however many acres you need for a golf course, and that bulldozer knocks down the first couple trees, and you go, oh man, I really hope this works.
Yeah, I,
Right?
I distinctly remember it. I'll have to share a picture with you guys because I'm not a selfie guy, but I took a selfie during this moment because it was one of those existential moments where, so we had gotten our permitting in place already, but we didn't have the funding for construction. We were struggling to find the right investor. We had some, but there wasn't alignment on the vision, or their terms were way out of whack, and it's hard, and we were sort of an unproven team at the time, right? So golf is a risky enough investment, and then you got this this unproven team, so it was very hard to find investors. And we had our permits. It was deep in the summer. and we hadn't yet found investors. And so we sort of concocted this idea. We called it the bridge plan, where I'll just go out there and start rough shaping some holes. And maybe the next investor that comes down will see the golf potential and so we shaped a lot of the greens around the pond area. And it was just me out there with an excavator. Co-owner David McFarland was out there with his dad, raking up, debris and tree stumps and chainsawing tree stumps. I mean, this was like psycho stuff. And I brought my dad out there too. And so I was out there rough shaping some holes, and then the air conditioner broke in the excavator. And if you've ever been in an excavator with no air conditioning in August in Colombia, it was about the most miserable thing you could ever do, because it's like that little cabin turns into like it's like a greenhouse effect when there's no air conditioning, and so you got the door wide open. There's bugs and shit everywhere flying in. The dirt's taken in, and that was the moment because we didn't know we would have any money for this place, and I was shaping it anyway, and it was exactly that moment of, well, this could all be in vain, right? I mean, I could be shaping dirt that lays fallow, that it'll never turn into a golf course. Boy, I hope this works out. And then, that was the moment where it was also like it was a weird thing, because it was one of the brightest moments, because we actually saw golf features start to take shape out there, which was really exciting. But it was also it's kind of the darkest moment, which is, man, we might be lighting this money on fire, because we're paying for the excavator, we're paying for the dump truck. We have no investors. This could not end up well. So that was the moment.
Yeah, being in South Carolina, it's hot enough without being in a glass box.
Yeah.
Trying to, with the pressure of building something amazing. So you said around the pond, so like 9, 6, 18
Yeah.
were some of those maybe first greens that you were
Yeah.
shaping?
Yeah. I think the first green we whacked out was actually 5 green.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And then we bounced over to 6 right, 6 left, and then 16 up at top, and then 18 last. So, and they
Yeah.
were like rough shapes. I mean, we were just roughing something in that would look somewhat presentable, because we didn't have the resources, we didn't have the people. Um,
Yeah.
but it was a great,
Well,
it was a
you
great place to start, because it was the natural amphitheater of great green sites right in that area.
well they have turned into something really nice.
Yeah.
I will talk more about that here in a second, but your design philosophy, if you had one, I know you've studied golf architecture and stuff. Who were some architects, maybe historical or even current, that you drew inspiration from, and are any of the holes, shapes, anything like that kind of, I don't know, patterned after some of the things that you've seen?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so first, Pete Dye is what I got into. My
Right.
my tastes have changed since then. But as I got more exposed to great golf, really just started, the classical era architects. Ross has had a big influence on me. Perry Maxwell has had a big influence on me. Um, and there's just a few spots where, I mean, moving to Pinehurst and playing number 2 all the time, it gets in your bloodstream. And number 2, I say this all the time, but I mean, I've played number 2 300-400 times, I don't know, and I learn something new every time I go out there. I think it's just genius. Went out to make the sojourn to Sand Hills, and really just got a real appreciation for the work that Bill Core and Ben Crenshaw have done. Their sort of portfolio of work is really inspiring to me, and Sandhills kind of was a really special moment for me, and my dad went out there. So in terms of the golf course, I mean, yeah, I'd say you're curating what you've seen on really every hole, but you're not copying anything either. There's little pieces that are floating around. So like the first shot, when Kyle and I were talking about the first shot, we're like, all right, up and over, kind of like pine needles. Okay, yeah. And then 2, it's like, oh man, this kind of the way that this fairway just kind of falls from left to right. It kind of feels like six at Eastward Ho, but you know what? Six at Eastward Ho, you can actually see the green site from the tee box. What if we grade just a little bit off the top notch there, and that way we can reveal the green site from below? So you're like having those conversations. The third hole at Broome is a natural sort of spiny type green site, and it's like, all right, what kind of green would work here so we don't have to move much earth? And Kyle was like, I think, this feels like a five at Dornoch type thing, just a long, skinny left to righter. Four, when we were talking about boundary line holes, one of the St. Enodoc, where the fairway kind of droops from right to left, but there's a hard boundary line down the right. So we were talking about, well, there's a little bit of that in there. So it's just that. I mean, I don't think anybody would feel like these are exact replicas or copies, but there's always something in there that kind of, because I think that's the language that you use when you're out in the field. It's such a visual medium, right? It's really hard to describe in words. When you're standing out there on naked dirt and there's tree debris everywhere, and you're trying to figure out what the whole concept is. It's hard. I'm not great at drawing. You can kind of put together a few photoshops, but those only get you so far. But when you're standing out there, because it's such a visual, like what are you seeing in your brain and how do you communicate that to the other guy? The way you do that is by referencing other golf courses that you've seen and saying, I kind of see this. And it never turns out just like that. It has its own unique flavor. But that is how we communicate it out there. And so I think that is, it speaks to why it's important for architects to see a lot of places, not because you're going to copy those places, but so that you have the verbiage to kind of reference things that you've seen.
That's how golfers communicate with each other, though, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, if you're talking about a hole you've played or a course you went to, what does it
yeah,
look like? You mentioned Pinehurst. We talked about number 8. Just driving in, you're like, this is a private country club. Like you could drop this into it, and if you say that to golfers,
yeah,
they know what you mean.
yep, yep. It's all about the communication, and especially when you're communicating with shapers too. So not only when you're when you're trying to decide like what hole concept works on this particular site, but then you actually have shapers out there that have to do it. And how do you communicate with them? So you'll get down to the really nitty gritty micro stuff of like, there's this, maybe there's this particular spine, the subtle spine that you want in the green. And so you'll reference some other place, kind of like that, think of the first green at Prairie Dunes, how there's that low right pin. Yeah, let's get something like that, So it's critically important to be able to communicate and reference other places.
So have you got someone coming to you yet going, hey, I played this hole and it was just like Broomsedge number 2?
Yeah, well, or a little bit, though there hasn't been many new golf courses since Broomsedge. So usually it's what I love is when people play Broomsedge and they say, oh, that felt like this to me. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I think there was the No Laying Up podcast where I can't remember who it was, but it was the 11th hole, the postage stamp hole. And they said it's kind of like a reverse of 6 at Dornoch. And I was like, yep, that was in my head. That's a pretty astute observation there. Pretty good. So I love to hear stuff like that. And then there's other comps that I never thought of before in any way, shape, or form, where people see something and they reference it. And I'm like, oh, great. That's a great golf course. I'll take that comparison. But honestly, it was not in my head when we were doing it. But yeah, I mean, as long as people are saying, I think the goal with Broomsedge was to give people something that they've never seen before, but that had also felt familiar. They had seen elements elsewhere at other great golf courses, but it was also something that they had never quite seen concocted before, and needs to feel new, but it needs to feel familiar, and that's a tricky balance.
Well, it seems like there's been a lot of early success. It's only been a little over a year since grass first started going down, and
Yeah,
got
not even.
people playing it, and things are progressing. But I'm sure it didn't come without challenges. You mentioned early on, like, hey, how are we going to pay for this and stuff like
hmm
that. But what in the design in the first year or so have been some of the challenges that you guys have overcome?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge was washouts. We probably, I think the biggest mistake we made in the construction effort was we probably overly grubbed the site, which is a very grub is a very technical term, obviously, but we cleared out some of the peripheral areas. You know, this was a timber farm, so there was trees and stumps and crap everywhere. Um, and we went in and we cleaned up everything. So even like the peripheral hillsides, you know, we plucked the stumps, we ran a bulldozer through it with a root rake, and we cleaned up all the crap and we threw it out. But what we, you know, in some spots that we didn't need to, we created some loose soils on a and you know those soils washed, and so I think everybody has dealt with this. Like Tree Farm, Old Barnwell, you talk to those guys. Like wash is just a thing you deal with in the sand hills. We just had an 8-inch storm here in Pinehurst, and there's all sorts of pictures circulating from
Yeah.
all the golf courses around here with like biblical wash. It's just if you want exposed sand, if you want that sand hills look, when rainstorms come, sand moves, and it's a pain in the ass. And it's a particular pain in the ass during construction. So one of the challenges we had was wash. I think we could have done a better job just in leaving some of the peripheral areas intact, just leaving the root beds intact so we didn't have as much wash. But at the end of the day, you're still going to deal with wash. So that was a significant challenge. The timeline that we worked on was a significant challenge. I mean, we moved fast, and that's always, you know, it's always a race to the finish. You're on Mother Nature's clock when you're putting down Bermuda grass. So um, you know, that was a big challenge. We had shortly after we put down our new sod, we had an infestation of fall army worms that came in June. So I remember Sean, our superintendent, called me and he's like, "Hey, we got fall armyworms." I'm like, "Fall armyworms? It's June." And he's like, "Yeah, I know." And we didn't have the equipment. We didn't have the chemicals for it. We didn't have the sprayer for it yet. So we had to make some emergency drives to Myrtle Beach and all over the region to borrow. And thankfully, there were a lot of gracious clubs nearby who would give us their shit. And and we, you know, we had armyworms on a couple holes that were eating our grass. And so that's why banks usually don't invest in golf construction. It's risky. There's just a lot of shit that can go wrong, from Mother Nature to army worms to wash. You know, so there were plenty of challenges along the way. And then the other thing too is the sand hills could just as easily be called the silt hills, right? It's a swirl of stuff. Like people, it's not like perfect deep beach sand that goes, you know, 80 inches deep in every pocket. And so you're just, it's not this big, you know, sandbox. You'll get some pockets of that, but then in other places you'll hit clay rather quickly. And so you never quite know what you're going to get. I mean, you have these soil maps, but they only get you so far until you really start digging and moving some dirt around. You don't really know what's underneath. And so we hit our own fair share of, you know, clay pockets and stuff we didn't like. And that stuff happens in the sandhills.
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to go. Robbie's been over. I think I was sick the day that we were supposed to be over there in person. So if if you're talking to somebody and you're like, hey, whenever I'm at the end of the day, I got a glass, a drink in my hand, this is the one spot I always like to go to just to enjoy what has become Broom's Edge.
Yeah.
Where would you tell people to go?
My favorite spot is right on. So my favorite spot is we don't have any food right now, so I pack a turkey sandwich, and then after the round I'll sit on those Adirondack chairs on one tee, and my favorite spot to watch is the approach into 9 green because it's a fall away green, and it's probably moving away from the player at about 3 to 4%. Very steady, very subtle, but the whole green, probably, well, not even the green. I mean, probably about 100 yards out, the whole thing just starts moving about 3 to 4% away from the player. But there's this knob in the back of the green that makes it look like there's some support in the green. So it doesn't look like it's falling away. We shaped this little knob so that it looks like there's some support there, but there's really not. And I love watching people that are like 50 yards out. You know, it's a short par five. You know, they're around the green, and the pin's in the middle. And I love watching them carry the ball too far into the green and watching it roll to the back edge, and then they toss their club up in some sort of exasperated move. And I just take great amusement in that. I'm a bit of a masochist when it comes to that stuff, but I just love that because it's such a subtle design feature, and that's what we tried to accomplish with really all of the green sites, except for maybe eight, right? Eight, there's a lot going on, but um, we really tried to stress subtlety and slope and tilt as opposed to kind of the buried elephants and the undulations. I feel like that the plinko shaping, if you will. I feel like that's been done a lot lately, and so we tried to get back to just subtle slope and tilt. And I mean, what look at what we just saw at Oakmont, right? What's the easiest way to just drive gray players nuts is just have the green fall away from them, like the first hole, like the 12th hole at Oakmont. And that's what we did on nine. And I love watching people come into that hole because especially the members have started to figure it out. They realize that they have to land the ball well short, but it's particularly interesting to see the guests that just carry it too far into the green and they can't believe how far it releases.
And
When the
they see a guy across the water laughing.
Yes,
right
yeah,
when,
exactly.
when the book is written on your golf course design, it's just going to be frustration is going to be the title of the book.
Yeah. I mean, those are the things that keep me coming back. I think that's why I love number two so much I mean, obviously number two is very, very pronounced off the greens. The rolled edges are very pronounced. But once you get on the putting surfaces, they're very, very subtle. And I just love that. I love when like, man, I missed that putt by 2 inches. Wow. How does it break that way? And then the next time you come back, you try to remember that. And I love that subtlety. I think that's what works at a private club. That's what keeps people coming back. The big pronounced contours, those reveal themselves exactly one time. You see them, they're obvious. You know what they're going to do. It's the subtle stuff that keeps me interested, at least. And I think that's kind of what, that was my philosophy with Broomsedge, is just build something I like, and hopefully the other people like it too. But I guess it turned out all right.
Yeah, a couple of the things that I really like, I've gotten to play it a couple times now. I love the fact that there's 20 greens.
Yeah.
So you've got a couple holes where you can kind of shift, and I think that was at least for one of them, it's like, wait a minute, we could go to this green for a second option.
Yeah.
But two, like I really love the par threes. I don't know why, but you got 5, 6, 8, I guess, and then you got the postage stamp, which then could be I don't know how you call it, not the stamp, but the other green that one can play too. So I think it's got a great collection of par threes. But maybe talk to that real briefly, but kind of other favorite holes that you have besides 2 or 9 or
Yeah. I think that the whole double green, that was really just being indecisive and saying, man, these are both great greens. Let's just build both. I can't decide. I'm laughing a little bit, but I mean, our philosophy was, well, don't build two greens on a hole if they're essentially the same hole. Only do two greens if you have fundamentally different holes that you're creating. And I think we did that on 6, having the 2 greens on 6, wildly different par threes. I think great par threes in their own right. But it's like, man, if
multiple teeing areas too, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, totally. Like 180-degree kind of tee around the dam. So, I mean, it was just like, man, there's endless permutations of great holes here. Why not do it? Similar with 13. I mean, very different holes, very, depending on where the pin is. I mean, you got a green that sits, 30 feet above another green on top of a wall of bunkers. The lower green is kind of a skip it in from right to left, kind of like 14 at Eastwood Ho. And then the top green is like 2 at Pine Valley, where it's just sitting on top of a wall of bunkers. Those are very different holes. They require very different tee shots, depending on where the pin is. So it felt like we can get 2 great holes for essentially the price of one. I mean, yeah, you're building another green site, which isn't free, but our decision was these are really, really great holes. And then 11, the funny story with 11 is our initial routing was down to the left green. And I was standing up there at the tee box, and there was just something inside of me that said, this feels a little bit too much like 5. So think about, Robbie, you've played it. I mean, think about 11 left and 5, right? It's sort of a left to right kicking green over a valley, kind of benched into a hillside. It felt a little similar, and I was concerned. I thought it was a cool hole, something that could be fun on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday type thing. But for the the championship routing at Broomsedge, it didn't feel it felt a little too close, like 5 for me. And so um, one day I was up on the tee box, and I glanced over, and there was a deer standing on a little tiny knob that was off to the right. And I had never really noticed that knob before. And Joe Hancock was our lead shaper, and I called Joe over, and I'm like, hey, take 30 minutes, just build a pad out of this little knob here, and let's see what it looks like. And 30 minutes later, we stood on the tee box, looked over at the little pad, and we both looked at each other. There were no words. I don't remember any words. We just kind of nodded at each other, and we knew that that was going to be a special green that felt totally different than all the others. And it was important to me to have kind of a shorty par three as well. If I go through my list of favorite par threes, the shorty ones are the ones that are going to be at the top. They just are. I don't know what it is, but the short par threes are just always the ones that stick with you. And I felt like that really added to the repertoire there. So I mean, that's a great example of just an audible call in the field. Wasn't part of the plan. Look at the original plan we have for Broomsedge. 11 green is not even there. It was just a total audible. And I think that's the beauty of design build, of like the architects being out on site all the time, is those opportunities just present themselves and you never saw it before. So yeah, I think the collection of par threes are phenomenal. I love all the holes out there. If you put a gun to my head and said, what's your favorite hole? I would say 10. I love 10. It reminds me a little bit of 10 at Shinnecock, where you have to decide whether you're going to lay up at the top plateau of the fairway or whether you're going to, bomb it down, and then you'll roll down the valley. You'll get another 50, 60 yards of roll down to the bottom of the fairway, but then you're staring straight up at this green with a massive false front. And so the decision is, all right, I can lay back off the tee, and then I can be eye level with the green about 150 out, or I can bomb it down the fairway. I can be 100 yards out, but I'm staring straight up at the green, and all I see is the top half of the flagstick, and I got a big ass false front to deal with. So I love that hole. I think yeah, and it was also the craziest terrain that we dealt with, and it was probably the one that we struggled with most in terms of figuring out a hole concept. But I thought 10 turned out great. I love playing 10, and there's some days where I'll lay back, and there's some days where I'll bomb it down, and I have fun either way.
We got a lot of friends that just love the driver, so
Yeah.
they would just rip it and hope they get it down to the bottom. But
Yeah.
I believe I heard a story about a pretty special hole in one for you out there.
Yeah, so the day before we opened for preview play, the owners went out and we played. We played in like I don't know, it was a 7-some or an 8-some. It was just a big gaggle of guys. And on 11, on the audible postage stamp, I got a hole in one that day, which is the first hole in one I've ever had in my life. So it was a very odd thing, and I've said this before, but it was not a great strike. It was kind of it was slightly thin. It was kind of just a weak 9-iron, but it was straight at the pin, and it got a big release, and it went in the hole. So it was, upon impact, it was not something I was thinking was going in the hole. And neither was everybody else. So when I first made contact, everybody else was like, oh, and then it went in the hole. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I heard there was one on 5 that maybe glanced off a tree and then went in the hole.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Apparently that's the only way to get a hole in one at Broomsedge, is you have to hit a bad shot.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, when we play, we often miss the green, but it's not because we're aiming to miss it. But I think that's the strategy.
Yeah. On
Don't
5,
aim at the flags.
Yeah, on 5, aim at the tree to the left of the green, and that's a kicker into the pin. And then on 11, you just have to hit kind of like a thin 9-iron.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about the logo, and then I hear you make all the flag sticks. Is that correct?
Well, I tried, yeah. So the logo was the creation of my fellow, so one of the original amigos in this whole thing. So Andrew Denenberg and David McFarlane and myself were the 3 original guys in this whole thing, and David McFarlane and his wife, who's a very talented graphic designer, came up with the logo, and he would like share sketches with us as he was making progress, and we're like, yeah, that looks pretty good. And then once he landed on the final one, there wasn't any discussion. It was just like, that's magical. That's like,
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's great. That's phenomenal. So all credit goes to David for the logo design. I do think it's one of the best logos in golf. I had somebody from Marion approach me and said, "Man, that's the best logo in golf." And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa!
Wow. Wow.
Hang on."
That's quite a
Yeah, I'm
compliment.
like, hang on." But it is to me, it's one of the best. It's just a phenomenal logo. And the flag sticks kind of came from that logo. We were just kind of talking of like, wouldn't it be cool to, speaking of Marion, wouldn't it be cool to like not just have a flag up top? I mean, our logo is essentially a flag stick, and so can we do something like that? And so I took the first whack at a prototype, yeah, in my garage. So we ordered the flag sticks from Standard Golf, just your normal flag sticks, and then we had to figure out how to mount this Broomsedge concoction to the top of it. And so I experimented with a little bit, and ultimately it came down to buying some fake plants off Amazon, like like the indoor plastic plants that your grandma will have in her house. We bought some of those, um, and then I sprayed what's the Flex Seal, the white Flex Seal on it to make it like waterproof. Like I'm at Lowe's
Yeah.
just making shit up. I don't know what I'm doing. And so then I went to Sherwin-Williams and got the color code from our logo and got it in like a spray paint type thing and painted it, and then just mounted it to the flag stick with like a red jute yarn, and there you go. Now we're gonna need so that's prototype number one. There will be iterations of this. I mean, we have had some problems with durability of these things.
Yeah,
I'm
you drop them on the green
Yeah,
like some people know with their normal flags. They're gonna
yeah. So we're
fracture.
starting to see some wear and tear on these things. So we're gonna have to professionalize this operation. I can't keep doing this shit out of my garage because I'm not a I'm not a handyman. I don't know what I'm doing. So we got it. I mean, we got the look that we wanted. But we got to figure out a way to make them a little bit more durable, so that they'll last through time. But it was a good first whack at it because it was hard. Like you could approach somebody at a at a professional company and be like, "Here's kind of the look," and they'd be like, "What? What are you talking about?" So we needed at least a visualization, and it I mean it ultimately worked, at least for the period of time. I'm shocked that they lasted this long. But yeah, they're pretty cool. That's one of the first things people talk about when they come on site is, did you see those
Yeah.
flag sticks?
I think they quickly realize how they have to be careful with them. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's a testament to the people you have out there playing.
yep, yep, for sure, for sure.
Where'd the name come from?
Broomsedge. So there was just a lot of broomsedge out there. Broomsedge is a native plant. Broomsedge is in the South. It has been pejoratively called poverty grass, because it's the thing that grows when you don't do anything else to the land, when you don't give it any nutrients, when you treat it very badly, broom sedge comes up. So it was pejoratively called like a poverty grass in the South because if you saw broom sedge in people's lawns, it meant that they didn't have the resources to take care of their turf, and broom sedge would come up. But it's a great golf grass because of that very reason. Like out in your native areas, the lower the maintenance, the better, and it's a clump grass. So usually the ball kind of like bounces off of it, and sometimes it gets stuck in it, but usually it just bounces off of it. But it's kind of a wispy type grass. It's a beautiful golden brown. It's green for probably July, August, September, but then it goes back to a golden brown the rest of the year. And there was a lot of it on site. And I was talking with my wife about it, and she's like, "I just love those one-word names for golf courses." Like we went through a whole list. I should pull up this list and put it in our eventual clubhouse one day. There was a lot of cheesy names, in there. I think I had like, oh, what about Ancient Shores? Because it's the old East Coast, Ancient Shores. And she's like, you need a one-word, Oakmont, Pinehurst. It has a ring to it, and ultimately Broomsedge just caught on. And I don't remember a particular moment when we all said, okay, it is Broomsedge. We've taken a vote, and everybody raised their hand, and it's Broomsedge. It just organically happened, and sooner or later everybody's calling it Broomsedge, and Broomsedge it is.
Yeah, Poverty Grass Golf Club
Yeah,
quickly got struck.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Not it's there's a I think sometimes you call it a whiskey grass, or it's also part of the blue stem family. So there was some blue stem. There was Red Hill Road, so there was a Red Hill Club. We had all sorts of ideas, but Broomsedge stuck.
It, if it's whiskey grass, you could do like a find someone to make you a small barrel or a small batch of whiskey,
Yeah,
and it could be Broom's Edge whiskey.
right. That's not a bad idea. Maybe we call it course two that because we do have land across the street. We don't have any immediate plans for it, but um, we do potentially have the ability to do more golf. So maybe that's a course two name.
Yeah.
Sure. I love it. Well, we asked people. I mean, we could talk about this all day long, and we want to respect your time. So we'll
No,
kind of
I'm good.
start wrapping up a little bit. But we ask everybody to tell us the story of your favorite golf shot. Maybe it's your hole in one.
I think I just told it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
That's hard to beat.
Any other memorable shot? I mean, you grew up playing with Dad and all this other stuff. What? Any other memorable golf shots that come
Yeah,
to mind?
many. There was I stuck it to about 3 inches on 17 at Sawgrass. Well, I almost got a hole in one at Sawgrass. I stuck it really close. It was the front pin, and I got really, really close. And I was a kid at the time, so that was pretty cool. There was the second shot on 8 at Pebble, which is just one of the. No matter what you do there, I hit in the ocean. It just skanked I don't know, 5 iron or something into the ocean, but that shot sticks with me just because it's 8 at Pebble. Um, 16 at Cypress also hit it into the ocean. That shot. So they're not necessarily my best shots. They're memorable shots.
Those are some of the best stories, right?
Yeah, yeah. 8 at Dornoch, just blistered. It was howling and uh, got stuck up on the top fairway shelf and just blistered a utility, which was just magical to watch. It was a low boring shot, but it was a downhiller, and so it was just fun to watch that ball flight. Yeah, a lot of great putts. I missed like a 2.5 footer on 18 at the old course with my dad, and I remember that so distinctly because he goes, "Next time, who's the guy? Was it Doug Ford who missed the 2.5 footer at the old course to lose the British Open?" So
Yep.
he called me Doug Ford. So I remember that. There's just lot of great shots that stick with me for better or worse.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, golf's all about the stories, whether it's good shots or bad.
Totally. Yeah.
Everybody has great golf stories, and
Yep.
and one of my highlights was I got to come out there with Dan Drellinger the first time
Hmm.
and see Broomsedge, but the pin on 11, I guess, was playing to the little postage stamp,
Yep.
hit it on the green, and somehow drained the putt. So
Nice.
I didn't make a hole in one like some people, but I did get a two on that hole, so that was kind of fun.
Nice. Nice. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Very nice. Well, we do another thing we like to call a quick nine. It's rapid fire. Jonathan, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, and this sounds like you're going to have quite the list to choose from. We'll exclude the one that you built and created,
All
but
right.
what is the favorite course that you've played?
Royal Dornoch.
Very nice. I'm going to be close to there in August, and I'm hoping at least to go by and see it. So,
Yeah, it's
uh,
it's incredible.
yeah.
There's no words for it.
Well, you've played a lot. You might not have any, but any course at the top of your bucket list?
Um, Probably I have yet to play Shinnecock. I need to play Shinnecock. That's a big gap in the bucket list. So yeah, any Shinnecock
I hear,
members out there have?
I hear that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I think it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So any members out there
Any members out
yeah,
there listening? We
yeah,
got three. We'll come join
yeah.
you right here.
Have pity on us. But yeah,
Yes.
Shinnecock's probably the one that I need to play.
Nice.
What would you say is the best course no one knows about?
Ooh, tough,
That
tough,
one down
tough.
in South Florida he was talking about
Yeah,
earlier.
Pembroke Country Club. Yeah. Um, I mean, this is hard because it's like no one knows about, like not even the casual golfer knows about. Man, I'd probably say Panmure, next to Carnoustie. It's where Ben Hogan used to warm up for the opens at Carnoustie. I think Panmure is really, really, really great golf course because it's got three distinct microenvironments. You have kind of like there's a little bit of a parkland setting, and then you get into like a links type setting, and then there's like a heathland type setting. So there's like 6 holes that are links, 6 holes that are parkland, 6 holes that are like heathland, and it's just incredible.
That's awesome. Very nice. All right. So if you get to your bucket list course, who's in your dream foursome? And you can take us out of the equation.
Oh, okay. Well, geez, that makes it tough now.
Yeah, I know.
Probably my family. My wife and two boys. That's a dream foursome right there.
I love it.
So, I want to ask this question, but we also need to know a little bit of the backstory on this. What is your walk-up song when you go up to the first tee?
Mm. So this question is not my favorite song. It is my walk-up song because I think they're different. My favorite song is Thunder Road by Springsteen, but that's not like a walk-up song. That wouldn't when I listen to Thunder Road, it doesn't make me want to play golf. So what makes me want to play golf? You know what? Do you remember like what's the theme song that NBC plays for the U.S. Open? What is it
Oh,
called?
yeah.
What is it? There's no words. It's Celebration. I don't know if they still play it, but like back in my heyday, like when I was growing up, it was those late '90s U.S. Opens that I remember just living for. Like the '96 Shinnecock, '98 Olympic, '99 when Payne won at Pinehurst, and it was Johnny Miller was on the call, and like those were the greatest things ever. And I remember the opening sequence, dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
That makes me want to play golf. So I guess that's my walk up song.
I
You said
love it.
that, and I first thought of John Tesh with the NBA, right?
Oh yeah,
Dun,
yeah.
dun, 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 dun.
Hey, that could be good too. But that see again, that makes me think of the late '90s Bulls. Like there's just
Right.
these things that stick with you. If you're
Yeah.
coming of age in the '90s, those theme songs just stick with you.
All right. Favorite golf club in the bag?
8 iron. I always feel good with the 8 iron, and I chip a lot with the 8 iron too.
Okay.
Always feel good when an 8 iron's in the hand.
If you've played a lot of links golf, I would imagine you've chipped a lot with
Yeah,
the eight
I
iron.
love. Yeah, my like the go-to. I chip with every club in the bag, really. But kind of my go-to bump and run is kind of a hooded 8 iron. Um, feel really comfortable with it. Don't know why. Always have. Even when I was a kid, I remember like even playing high school tournaments. I always felt good with an 8 iron in my hand. Don't know why.
I usually chip with my putter, so maybe I should start chipping with a
Yeah,
different club.
yeah.
All right. What is your favorite snack on the golf course?
Turkey sandwich.
Turkey
Nice,
sandwich.
cool turkey sandwich. Yeah.
Is there? I know food options are coming to Broomsedge. This is a side note. Will there be like a signature dish or something?
We've talked about that actually. There's been no decisions made yet, but it has been in conversation in terms of whether it's a signature dish or a signature drink or something. But to be determined. To
To be
be
determined.
determined. Yeah.
We'll
As
have to
long
have a third part podcast series on the food at
There
Broomsedge,
you
food
go.
and beverage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
as long as you don't tell them what's in it, haggis is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Just don't say it.
Just
Yeah. Call it
just
something
don't
else.
ask.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
don't ask.
Yeah. It's
But
like
it is good.
yeah. Love it.
Scottish snack. All right. Again, we talked about the Broomsedge logo being already one of the favorites of many. Taking that one out of the equation, though, what's your favorite golf course logo?
Probably Marion. Probably Marion. That's why that stuck with me when the guy from Marion says you got a great logo. All right, that stuck with me. But
Yeah.
man, you just there's an immediate sense of place there.
Yeah, I mean, I love a logo where it's simple and you know exactly. So you see that wicker basket, you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
And so now Broomsedge has that.
yeah,
So
yeah. You know where you're at immediately for sure.
Final question. Finish this sentence. The best part of golf is.
The fields that we get to play on. It goes kind of back to my earlier point that I am just endlessly fascinated by the variability in the playing fields. And I think that's what separates us from other sports. Yeah, in football you get, weather certainly has an impact on whether you're throwing a lot or whether you're running a lot. But at the end of the day, it's the same grid. Basketball court is a very controlled indoor environment on the same grid. Soccer field. Baseball fields vary a little bit. I mean, you go from bigger ballparks to Fenway. There's a lot of cool variability in baseball fields, but there's still a lot of uniformity in it too, where there's still a certain measurement from the pitcher's mound to home plate and so on and so forth. But I just love that golf courses have no rules And I think that's why maniacs like us will travel to the ends of the earth to see new places, right? Like you're not going to travel to some far off land to go see a basketball court. It's going to be the same thing, you know. Like I think what makes it so special is the interaction with nature and the variability in the playing environments, that nothing is ever the same. And because it's an outdoor sport as well, not even the same golf course is the same day in and day out. So that's what has drawn me to golf all these years, is it's just completely unpredictable. There are no rules to the playing field, and there's so much art to it. It's more art than science, I think, which I love. So
I love it. All right. Well, as we wrap up and leave you, two things: what's next for Broomsedge, and what's next for you?
yeah. So what's next for Broomsedge is we got to get cottages and clubhouse cooking. So we have a pretty big national membership. They need a place to stay and they need a place to eat. So we're, working on that right now. Get some cottages online. Get some food and beverage options. Get some bathrooms out on the other side of the course. Just like basic infrastructure stuff. We need to get done. I mean, we spent the past couple of years focused on creating the best golf course we could, and without that, nothing else works. And now that the golf course is settling in, we're going through another, growing season. It's starting to mature. The natives are coming in. So really now it's time to turn our attention to the buildings and the infrastructure. So that's really what's next for Broomsedge, and making sure that we deliver for for the members there. What's next for me? So there's a project cooking that we announced outside of Charlotte called Down Bonnie. So that's a great piece of land out there. Can't wait to start tackling that. But the timeline on that is still a little, we're still in the very early days of that. But really, I mean, Broomsedge was so interesting because I was able to wear the developer hat and the architect hat at the same time. And while I loved the development side, the thing that got me up every day was the design side, the golf course design side. So that's the bug. And so I'll keep pursuing that for the next couple of years, and see where that takes me. But just build great golf. That's the focus right now for me personally.
Well, as people that love playing golf, we appreciate what you do. And we appreciate your time, man, spending
Yeah.
some time with us, telling us your story and just more about Broomsedge that everybody needs to go check out when they can. So,
Cool.
Mike,
Yeah,
thanks for joining us
enjoyed it.
on
Oh, wait,
the
I
Whole
had
Story Podcast.
wait, I had a thought. It's not Doug Ford.
Yeah.
It was Doug Sanders who missed the putt on the whole course. I don't know who Doug Ford is, but that name is in my head.
So that's weird that your dad was calling you Doug Ford.
No, I know. I think my dad got it right. I got it wrong. Yeah, it was Doug Sanders who missed the putt on it. But
Very nice.
all good. Thanks,
Very
guys. I appreciate it.